everybody. This is day 1473. Day 1473 days since Richard was premeditatedly murdered on Fort Bliss for whistleblowing. He was being retaliated for whistleblowing against criminal trafficking, and it was bad, y'all. It was so bad that the IG were all over the barracks because of Halliday, and he was in communication with Washington, D.C. He reported with evidence to Child Protective Services. Um, uh, he was in communication with FBI Houston. He was in communication with CID. And this was before he disappeared. He went missing. He was in communication. And of course, he called 911 multiple times. He was absolutely fearing for his life, right? He was being retaliated. So, the evidence is there. We know all of this. And the focus right now, because of August 3rd, 2019, 5-year anniversary of the Walmart mass shooting, that is intertwined with Richard's case, because Richard's case came first. Richard's case, we believe, came before the Walmart mass shooting 5 years ago. That Richard was reporting this criminal trafficking, and that the IG were all over the barracks because of Halliday, that they were flush with weapons and other problems. And CID, Dirty Agent Soto, said, and it wasn't just his barracks, it was all of Fort Bliss. I'm like, okay, that doesn't make me feel better. And it was it was absolutely being investigated. And we believe that's why the criminals orchestrated the Walmart mass shooting partially for a diversion tactic of the criminal investigation going on because of what the reports that Richard had filed. We believe that, all the evidence, the irregularities, the circumstantial evidence, the names, because the names are belong to or associated with the rogue criminal group of the original response team, and of course of the Walmart response team also. And so, these are the same actors or associated with the same actors. And of course, you have Bob Moore of El Paso Matters that gets his funding partially. A big part of it is from El Paso Community Foundation, and El Paso Community Foundation once owned KTSM. Thank you very much, Team Find Richard Halliday. That was very, very helpful information. That El Paso Community Foundation. We have people everywhere, and they are sick and tired of all of this criminal trafficking. They are also tired of the authorities and the media not doing their job, of the oversight. And, this is something that we've learned over these years, is that the media is spending their time spinning false webs, right, of information, false narratives of information. And this is very, very dangerous, because articles in the news are used as evidence and information in court cases and also in the halls of Congress to cite why they want to change policy or redirect policy or cancel policy or, uh, direct the society. And they use these articles. And so every official journalist, like Bob Moore and others, like at KTSM, and to think that both KTSM and El Paso Matters has this very funding connection with El Paso Community Foundation is very concerning. It's very concerning because both of them are using unreliable sources. They absolutely knew that Leilani Hart was an unreliable source. They absolutely knew that Rosa Maria Valdez Garcia is an unreliable source. They also knew that Belen Rocha is an unreliable source. They also know that Danae Katzen is an unreliable source. And they orchestrate false narratives and document it like it is real, like it is historical. And that those documents then are in turn used. That's why control over the media is so important for these criminals, because those articles are in turn used to direct policy. And if you're wondering why Congress is doing this and doing that, it's because history is being falsely narrated and documented. And this is the concern that we have with, of course, Richard's case, because they wanted to falsely document who Richard is, who Richard was, who our family is, what he was doing, and that's why we need to have his record set straight and the retaliation against him rescinded. We need to have that retaliation rescinded because that retaliation documents a false reality, a false narrative. And that's, being a false witness. As God would say, thou shalt not bear false witness. Thou shalt not document unreal false narratives that lawyers can use and cite it as being real when it's not. And then drive policies, laws, and court cases. And so, and I hope that makes sense, because it is very serious to us to make sure that the truth is written down and that Richard is remembered according to the truth, not a false narrative. And because his case is intertwined with the Walmart mass shooting case, and the Walmart mass shooting case is being documented in a false narrative, and everyone that has any kind of connection in El Paso and Juarez to the Walmart mass shooting absolutely knows, and to Bliss Avenue, absolutely knows that, and I would say the media, and I would say law enforcement, because you've had prosecutors die, you've had the police chief die, you've had, Loretta Lynn Hewitt resign in protest. You've had the takedown of illegal takedown, the usurpation of the 34th Judicial District Attorney's Office, the false narrative that was surrounding Yvonne Rosales. Um, you know, and she needs to make sure that the truth, even if the truth is not always uh, angelic, right? Even though the truth might not be so angelic, it's still the truth. And the truth is very powerful. And she could march right in there, standing on that truth, which is far, far better than the forced resignation, the resignation under duress that she had to suffer because of this gag order that was good for some and others can break it at want and at will, like Bill Hicks, the usurper. Why do you think he can break the gag order without any consequence? Because he's a usurper. He's the false narrative. And if you bring that down, if you expose that lie, then you're going to expose the crimes behind the usurpation of the 34th Judicial District Attorney's Office. And then you're going to say, but why? You want to know the motive behind it. And that will lead to the Walmart case, because absolutely they are very shallow right now in their reporting of the Walmart case. Because the real victims of the Walmart case want accountability, and that's how we get community healing on that. And that accountability includes what happened to Richard, because they are intertwined. And any of those people that participated in the orchestration and the delivery of the false narrative need to be held accountable. And, from my view, that is Ernest Christopher Grant. Everything that comes from he's an unreliable source, like Leilani Hart. You need to put them in the same category. They belong in the same box. Unreliable source, Leilani Hart, Rosa Maria Valdez Garcia, and of course, Ernest Christopher Grant. And you can say, oh, but wait a minute, he was shot and all of this. No, he is an unreliable source, not because I said so, because the El Paso Police Department has said so. Something is very fishy around him, and what they've done is they've scrubbed him from the scene. They've scrubbed him from the internet. It's kind of like what they did with this Crooks guy, right? For the attempted assassination. They scrubbed him from the social media internet. They've just scrubbed him. And this live stream is called Dear Patricia. Dear Patricia. And it's not me. My dad named me Patricia. My dad named me Patricia right there at White Sands Missile Range. I think it was a very popular name for that area, because in Richard's case, there seems to be, some Patricias. Some Patricias. And, and not me, not just me. So, why would anyone want to be caught on the wrong side of this criminal capital murder case? That's Richard's case. The gruesome murder of our son is deserving of the death penalty, just like the gruesome murder of the victims of Walmart. It's deserving of the death penalty. What they did to the community, to the victims and the community on August 3rd, 2019, is deserving of the death penalty. There's no doubt in my mind. And the perpetrators in the disappearance, well, the retaliation, disappearance, murder, and cover up of our son Richard also is deserving. Well, let's just say the death penalty needs to be on the table, and I think it's very deserving, the death penalty. Now, I'm the mother. I can't be on the jury. I can't be on the jury. Um, it would be kind of like that judge and Lorna Doone um, with these perpetrators. But in any case, if I was part of media, if I was like, the names coming up are Valdez, Munoz, Melendez, Chacon, um, Smith, there's a lot of Smiths. Um, of course, Ortega, of course, Ortiz, of course, Rocha, of course, um, Katzen, of course, Ambrice, of course. There's lots of these names, and none of them want to be on the wrong side of this. And it's breaking because like today, we had the crash over 1,000 points. Uh, you know, how many trillions of dollars? What did they say? $1 trillion was lost today in the markets. As the economy shakes, the stability in the criminal networks will also shake. And there's not much stability there to begin with. They're always shaky because they're criminals. And there's no honor amongst thieves, right? There's no honor. It's all coercion, and um, I would say, I want to say corruption, but it really is that they've been compromised. Compromised because of corruption, because of coercion. A lot of bullying, a lot of that going on. And and it's very bad when it comes to our mainstream media. And that's why they just have lost that's why they use so many unreliable sources now, because they're manufacturing the narrative. They're manufacturing supporting the narrative. And anyone that believes that Patrick Crusius, or that, right now, Patrick Crusius is in solitary confinement. He has not had a mental health evaluation since the last time that I heard. I've been trying to keep up with that. And he has a mental health condition. He has several mental health conditions. And the people of El Paso need to have that mental health evaluation done. They've paid millions of dollars to have it done. Why can't it be done? That's part of preparing for a trial, right? And we need to know his situation, and we need to hear from him. He's allowed to defend himself if he so chooses. He can plead the fifth, he can stay silent, but he can also, if he wants, because we know that he was asked if he was a white supremacist, and he said no. In court, he said no. And yet it is still being reported that he's a white supremacist. Without a hearing. Without a hearing. And that's really, really important for me. And I think it's very, very important for the victims to understand the motive. And if he's not mentally capable of writing a manifesto, who did it? Because we know that there's a lot of orchestration here. And we know that there's a lot of orchestration with Richard's case. You see, these cases are so intertwined. That's why they don't want them to go forward, either one of them, because they're intertwined. Who orchestrated? Who covered up? What was the motives? Were the motives because the IG were all over the barracks because of Halliday that they orchestrated a Walmart mass shooting? Or who were the victims really, and why were they the victims? Was it just random, or were they targeted? And we know by several, and were they targeted in connection to what Richard was reporting? See, these are the questions that we have, because we do not trust Mario Raskin Ortiz. He's not legitimate, and he's not qualified for his position. And the DA is a usurper. And when you have the chief medical examiner not being trustworthy, and he's the one that determines the manner and cause of death, then you have a real problem on your hands. Because we also know that the crime scene was tampered with. That those that were not authorized to walk amongst the dead there at Walmart did so. And why? And who were these victims? Where did these victims live? Who were they associated with? And was it just random? Was the motivation just a hate crime? We know from Patrick Crucius, he said no. And that's why this perpetuation that this is a white supremacist is so bad, because the evidence that is not getting forward, that because of Richard's case that we have, there are conflicts of interest with these victims, y'all. And we need to know the real motive behind why they were killed. Was it deliberate? Who were the murderers? Because what Ernest Christopher Grant said in his interviews, he's an unreliable source. The evidence proves that everything that he said cannot be trusted, because the evidence does not corroborate his words. And the El Paso Police Department corroborated what I just said. They came out with a statement that he was an unreliable source, because the clothes that Patrick Crucius had on, when he, minutes, he didn't have time to change. He had to drive over to the Hispanic law enforcement officer to surrender himself with his weapon minutes after what falsely, and I think he needs to be arrested, but they're protecting him because they're sanitizing him from the internet. Ernest Christopher Grant with Chris Cuomo can answer this, and Beto O'Rourke, and the other off-duty police officer, and of course the CBP angel, who's not really an angel. Okay? She's not really an angel. She's quite the opposite. Quite the opposite, in my opinion. And when you start putting this together and you start seeing what their immediate actions were to try to capitalize off of this, is it's very telling. It's very telling. And we need to find out the motives, the real motive behind the murder of these victims. And I think doing that, we will also find the motive, the real motive behind the murder of our son. And this is why this is so important. And for Patricia out there that knows, could answer a lot of questions. She might not know 100%, but I think that she knows a lot. I would say, dear Patricia, don't be on the wrong side of these capital murder cases, of the murder of these Walmart victims and the murder of our son. And then we have to be suspicious of the death of Glendon Oakley Jr. in his barracks room on April 8th, 2020. And I would say there's some more. So, and this is clearly, I'm not alone in saying this. The public is waiting. They know already. Even though there was a gag order put on the case so that it would stop the truth from getting out, and those that are criminal, like Bill Hicks, he's so criminal, y'all. He's a usurper, an impersonator, what do you call it? He committed perjury. That's the word I wanted to say, plagiarist, but it's not. It's perjury. He's a real criminal, and he is allowed to break the gag order without consequence. Without any consequence. Now, why is that? Now, are the victims' families that know things like Memo Garcia, are they allowed? Or the nurses, are they allowed that took care of him for months and months? Are they allowed to say something? Oh no, they have to be under gag order. Is the DA, the former DA that was investigating El Paso Community Foundation and Rosa Maria Valdez Garcia, why they were, how they were distributing the funds, the Walmart victims funds that they received, millions and millions of dollars that they were in charge of, and who was getting these funds? As time goes on, people, forget, and they're like, oh yeah, that was millions of dollars. Who got that money? Where is the list of who got that money? I hope it wasn't the rogue group of the breakaway criminal, well, I should say the breakaway rogue criminal group of the response team. I hope none of them got it. I hope no tattoo artist got it. I don't know if a Patricia got it. I didn't get any of it. I'm not part of the victims. But nobody that was not a victim should get that money. And so, can Yvonne Rosales discuss who got the money? Talk about the Walmart? No, there's a gag order. And they pounded her for that. And yet Bill Hicks with Montoya, he's running against Bill Hicks. He's not even you would think that if you were running against Bill Hicks, you would run an ad that Bill Hicks, why would anyone vote for him? He can't even install himself properly as a district attorney when he is a recess without any scrutiny appointment, right? And that he clearly, in the open records that we got and what we got, it seems very clear that he tampered or schemed to tamper with the timestamps, to backdate, to undo his incompetency, to, maybe he did it on purpose, to install himself as the district attorney. He had to fill out the right paperwork at the right time, in the right order. I mean, any lawyer knows that you have to do ABC, not CAB. You've got to do ABC. And then you can't mess with timestamps. So you would think that Mr. Montoya would absolutely have an ad out there saying, look, why would anybody vote for Bill Hicks? He's not legitimate. He is a confirmed usurper, a trespasser. And he's been hurting every case that he touches in that office. And he's been bleeding attorneys, because who wants to work for him when he's a usurper? And of course, our son's case partially depends on a legitimate district attorney in that 34th Judicial District Attorney's office. So this matters a lot to us. And it matters to the Walmart case and to the victims that need to know how they distributed these victims' funds that so many people donated. So many people donated millions of dollars from their good heart, thinking it was going to go to the victims. That all needs to be accounted for. Truly investigated and accounted for. But Yvonne Rosales was taken down like 2 days after, or a day after, maybe it was 2 days after she announced that they were going to investigate in El Paso Community Foundation. So this, all of this is for us doing this day in and day out for 4 years. Has been, the puzzle pieces coming together, that Richard's case was first. In our opinion, it was absolutely first. And there was some real investigations going on. And these investigations were on some real leadership there. Crooked leadership. Dirty leadership. And we know that Veronica Escobar is a dirty leadership. We know that Marlon Soto of the CID is dirty. We know that Tavita Nusa dirty. We know that the FBI supervisory director, Jesus Eddie Nieto Jr., dirty. And he's married to Cynthia Hernandez, who, is intelligence on Fort Bliss. And we know that Lieutenant Colonel Bradford Bugado is dirty, and that his father-in-law was working for Western Frontier Trading, but also an agent of the FBI, but also has a criminal record. And as a G3, Lieutenant Colonel Bradford Bogado, G3 of the 32nd ATCOM, has a father with a criminal record, a serious criminal record. And he is part of a company offering up to $3 million worth of ammunition to the El Paso Police Department in a contract deal. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. And he says Richard's remains were found in Juarez, Mexico. And so we called the State Department, and they corroborated that the FBI were indeed looking for Richard's remains in Juarez, Mexico. And then DES Thomas Kane, the Directorate of Emergency Services for Fort Bliss, said Richard was a good meal for the coyotes. And then we had Jaime Corona for the State Department, DHS, no, was it? Yeah, DHS, Department of Homeland Security, but liaison to the Department of State in Juarez to part of the investigation in all of this. That was tampered with even in Mexico. So Richard's files were tampered with there on the Fort Bliss CID by Tavita Nusa and Leilani Hart. And they were also tampered with at the AG office there in Juarez, Mexico. Ours meaning Rob's, Richard's father, his statement was tampered with. Remember, we went over there so many times. We went over there, but we put in for a missing person. We went over there to look for, any unidentified bodies, remains. They had so many. And our eldest son, came over there with us to give his DNA. And our report was tampered with. And we know that Richard's case at the AG office was targeted. And we know who did it. So, and of course, in the news, Richard's case with, Bob Moore has targeted Richard's case. And also KTSM, Danae Katzen, targeted Richard's case. And now we know that Jonathan Ambrose confirmed 143. Confirmed that he has a criminal record. Confirmed. And he's absolutely has ties to Bliss Avenue. And more. And more. And so we say, dear Patricia, you don't want to be on the wrong side of this. Things change. They don't stay like 2020. In 2020, it was very difficult for anyone to really listen about the Walmart case, about Richard's case. It was very difficult. And 2021 was also difficult. It started lightening up. But times have changed, and we have people daily giving us information, asking us not to stop, keep going, because they have absolutely, um, their eyes are wide open, and they absolutely see the manipulation in the Walmart mass shooting, and also the manipulation in our son's case. And for the media to perpetuate what they did in 2020 and 2019 and 2020 is really not a smart move. It's not a smart move to, uh, side with unreliable sources. And for law enforcement to use those documents, those false narratives, those false stories with unreliable sources as their reason for investigations or non investigations or for legal matters or for policy is also not smart, because there are ongoing state and federal investigations going on here, multiple. And I've just over and over again, why would you want to be on the wrong side of this case, of these cases? I mean, and if, yeah, no. The stars in their course fought against Sisera. I have a couple of fig trees in my yard. And of course, a lot of them are ripe. I still have some that are not ripe, but we can go back in the back and we can eat some figs right off the tree. And the Bible says you need to know, you need to learn how to read the signs of the time. Like you can take that from the fig tree, right? You know that the figs are about to ripen. The harvest is coming soon. And, absolutely, we want our son's remains, and because they have our son's remains. You don't give a declaration of death and pay out the receipts and don't have the remains. And we believe they found partial remains before we even knew our son was missing and murdered. So, it's every possibility is starting to narrow down. And there's several key people in this and several key documents. And one of those major key documents is Leilani Hart's FBI confession that she notarized. Of course, the communications with her then husband, James Courtney Hart, and of course, Nadal Baim's confession that was videotaped. And can you believe it? I'll never forget when I was doing a live in Current, and I said, or I posted up or whatever in her comment, I said he was ordering her to be quiet. I want you to gag yourself. Don't tell what I just told you. And he put his finger up to his mouth like this. And Corinne goes, he's not putting his finger up to his mouth, ordering her to be quiet. He's going like this to his mask. I was like, wow, red flags went up. because anyone that watched that video knew exactly. And of course, we spoke to the cashier who absolutely uh, told us that he wanted her to be quiet about it, about what he just told her. So to us, that tells you that Corinne is up to no good, that she came in trying to act all friendly and trying to get us to do some kind of card reading with her daughter or whatever, I guess to give us some false narration, false information. I don't know what her motive is, but I absolutely know that she's up to no good and she needs to be investigated. And those were red flags. A lot of red flags in this. And we need to stop all the lies and the false narratives, and we need to get to the truth. So, and the truth is, Richard was whistleblowing, and they tried to cover that up and manipulate and tamper with his files, what he was reporting, and the evidence. And that is the what we've been told about his car, about his passport, about his phone is a false narrative. And so and the truth is coming out. So dear Patricia, I know you're being protected. I know that they're sanitizing. You know, it's very interesting when you go to a person that has a wonderful CV and they get rid of it. They get rid of it. They sanitize it. Why? Especially when you're, working age and or you're getting a little bit older. Uh, you want to showcase, promote yourself, especially if you're a little bit younger. Like Jules Tuganon Chan, he totally sanitized himself. He has a LinkedIn that says, I'm a hacker. He calls himself a hacker, right? Because he's technical. Um, I don't know what all he was hacking. That's for him to explain. But he calls himself a hacker. I didn't call him a hacker. He called himself a hacker. And then he has another LinkedIn that he totally got rid of. But we saved it before that. And it has this whole list. And it's wonderful. It's all of this security, health and security and all of that. His military. Why would he want to get rid of it? Because what he was doing as a security officer was illegal. So that's really important for people to understand that, they're hiding because they're abusing their power. They're abusing their positions. They're up to no good on the taxpayer's dime. And that means that this case and the Walmart case is important, not only to us, but to you. And we thank you so much for your support. Please share. And please pray. Thank you so much. Please like, like, join. You can join the TikTok. You can join the, we're being shadow banned, but this is a documentation every day, documenting, um, and can be used for future policy changes to restrain criminal activity in our institutions and agencies. Thank you so much. God bless you. We want Richard's remains home, and we want accountability. Thank you. Bye bye.